Hi, my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News, and today we have Scout Stubbs joining us in the studio. Scout is running to be the representative for House District 42. Many of you know that seat was held by Representative Stephen Meeks. Of course, he is now term limited. Scout, thank you so much for coming to the studio.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I do think that a lot of our viewers are becoming more familiar with you and your race for this primary seat. But for those who aren't, just first tell us a little bit about yourself, and also House District 42, the area that is. I know that you include several counties in that district, so just talk to us a little bit about that first.
So there's actually portions of 3 counties in my district. I've got portions of Faulkner, Buren, and even Cleburne. And so my district goes from Greenbrier over to Quitman and then all the way up to Fairfield Bay. And so the way they draw the district lines, as you know, it's by population. So a rep in Conway might only have half the city, but to get 31,000 people, my district was very spread out. So
okay, and then just tell us about your history there, your background. I'm so interested to know why you decided to get into politics. You're a small business owner. You have been a homeschool mom. You guys have a farm, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to run for this House seat.
Well, it didn't happen overnight. You know, I've been an angry woman going to the state legislature for a while now, but I grew up in Batesville, born and raised there, but I moved back to Greenbrier to be closer to my grandparents, and that was 12 years ago. My husband and I, we started a small business, and so far, over the past 12 years, the only obstacles that we've faced were those that they're by the government. And not necessarily the government. I'm talking about the $10,000 a month lobbying firms that are put up by these huge corporations to squash small business. And a lot of times that's what I see. Corporations love red tape. So, of course, they're going to red tape the heck out of small businesses and small farmers, too.
Yeah.
So that they can determine how Arkansans spend their money. And it's something that I have been passionate about for a long, long time, because I don't like to see people in my district being controlled by out-of-state special interest groups.
Yeah, and so your small business is...
We own Drippers Vape and Hen.
Okay.
So you can imagine types of folks we're up against.
Yeah.
Because we have enemies in the big pharmaceutical companies, and we've made enemies of the big tobacco companies because, of course, we help people quit smoking and we help people get off of pharmaceutical products. And so huge industry in Arkansas, and that's something we've always been passionate about. We make everything ourselves, and so we're also a manufacturer. And because I wanted our products to be safe for everyone to use, I'm putting in my body nicely. But when I went to the state legislature, probably the first time, it was usually like a huge tax, which seems very disingenuous to me, is that we're just going to tax something that we personally don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to testify at my first committee meeting, and I thought, you know, I'm the small business owner, I pay taxes, I'm an upstanding citizen, and they'll just listen to me. Maybe they just didn't know. And that's not what happened. They still voted to pass the bill out of committee that was going to put me out of business. And then I kept fighting it. And over the past 10 years, we're pretty much undefeated. I go and I plead my case, and a lot of legislators now kind of know who I am and know that I'm not a liar, and so they listen to us.
Yeah.
They say, hey, you know, these stores are actually trying to do the right thing. Now, we still make our enemies up there, but a lot of the times it's not the legislators. They're listening to these mega fund lobbying firms. They're not listening to their constituents. And me as a constituent, when I call my legislator, I would think I would want to trust my legislator. I would want them to trust me and say, hey, you live in my district, you vote for me, I'm going to help you and your small business. And so that's kind of what got me into politics.
Yeah.
That was a long-winded answer.
But talking about those bills and legislation, and then, you know, also I wanted to ask you about the one from 2023, that was Act 629. Even in this past session, there were several bills that were vape related.
Yes.
Dismang had one. His was Senate Bill 605. That would have put a new tax on THC related products. And, you know, of course, it was this brand new tax. There was no tax cuts to offset anything. It was just like, well, we don't like it, you know, so let's tax it. And then House Bill 1626, and that was by Representative Duffield, whom was a Calvin Coolidge award winner. I believe, yeah, he was. I think so. And but that one was also a ban on the sale of disposable vaping products. And of course, the caveat to that one, as you could explain way better than me, was, well, this has to do with foreign products that come in and that are really harmful. What is a trend that we have our opinion on what we believe to be the trend in Little Rock, and with this type of legislation, what do you see?
So I'm a free market capitalist. I think that usually the market will control the outcome and people should be able to decide for themselves. But what happened with a lot of these hemp bills, the legislative intent is to remove harmful products from the market, right? That's the legislative intent. Now, I know that there is some financial interest backing those because, all those bills down there, you just got to follow the money because then you'll figure out who really is drafting this. It's like
all the money. That might be something that we do here at Conduit for Commerce.
And so with these hemp bills, I think a lot of it was because of pharmaceutical companies. They were losing a lot of their customers.
Yeah.
The legislative intent was to remove harmful, intoxicating products, right? And same thing with Dismang's tax.
Yeah.
It's the sin tax. But my argument is, and has always been, this bill will also affect CBD products. I'm talking about CBD that my mom uses, my grandma uses, my great uncle, who now walks without a cane, he uses. And that's exactly what ended up happening, is that when they passed this bill, they said, oh, no, this won't affect CBD. And then a couple weeks ago, I got an email that said most, if not all, of the hemp products that you sell are now illegal. And so if it's not what I said would happen,
right?
Yeah, it's frustrating because I just wish we had more input, and I wish we had been listened to when this was going on the floor.
As you're traveling around right now, campaigning and meeting people in your district, what are you hearing from them? Do you take their temperature on how they feel about things in Little Rock? What are you hearing the most from as you meet people?
Absolutely. I think that a lot of people are disenfranchised with a lot of stuff. They don't think that their voice matters. And that is something that I want to fight for. I say, look, you can make a difference. I've been doing it for the past 10 years. I go down there, I testify in committee, I let everybody know what's going on, how this will affect our small business, and they listen. And so if you want to affect meaningful change, you need to vote for people that will listen to you. And a lot of the times our issues are taxes. Most of the small business owners that I talk to, they're being killed with all these taxes and red tape and permit fees. There was a bill this past session that imposed a $5,000 permit fee per location to sell CBD products. That's just one example. A lot of the time, the corporate meat processors, they're consolidating all of these processing facilities. And so it becomes way more expensive for small producers, poultry, pork. I raise pigs. And so when you only have access to these huge corporate processing facilities, prices go up. Small homers can't compete with places like Tyson. But when there's such a barrier to entrance on small business, then our communities suffer. We're not a huge urban area. I live in rural Faulkner County, and so we don't have a lot of urban businesses that are supporting us. A lot of it's small business. TMU is not going to sponsor your kid's soccer team. So, we have to help our small businesses survive. And the way we do that is with less government. A lot of the time people think more government is the solution to all of our problems, but really that just creates more problems. And so that is the mindset, that is the lens through which I look at everything in the state legislature is, does this create more government or less? Does this raise taxes or create more of a deficit? And that's what we need to be looking at. I would like to explore ways to eliminate property tax.
I was going to ask you about that.
Property tax, that's the number one issue that I hear from people in my community.
What do they say about it?
They want to get rid of it. But I really want to see income tax gone. And I know that every state around us is growing, and that I think, is because they're in the process or have already eliminated state income tax. It's kind of like the sin tax when we were talking about last year. If you want to discourage something, you tax it.
Yeah.
So why are we taxing income?
Right. Yeah, I know that's so true. And that has been something Representative David Ray and others have said. They're like,
Yeah.
all these surrounding states right now are eliminating it. Arkansas has made what we call here at Conduit, they're just kind of dancing around the edges, playing around the edges of it, but there comes a point in time when, okay, either you fulfill your campaign promise of eliminating it or you don't.
We're addicted to, in Little Rock, we're addicted to taxing and spending.
100%.
We have too many things that we want to fund, these extravagant spending bills. And then we think, well, we can just push it off to the taxpayer. They're going to pay it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we saw a lot of that this session. I'm sure you were following it.
It's money.
It's our money. It's kind of wild at times. And I'm trying to remember what bill. Oh, I know. It was David Ray's soda tax bill, and it was in committee, right? An easy way to phase it out. It was double taxed. Majority of conservatives voted against it, even though, earlier in that day, they, voted for economic development incentives for all of these different companies. But during that committee hearing, I think her name is Janet Mann. She was head of the department, and she goes, "Well, that will affect my money." And David Ray was like, "Your money?"
Right. Exactly. This is the taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before we move on to taxes and government spending, there was something I wanted to ask you about. With your company and vaping and CBD products, there was such a push this session also, as you know, regarding election integrity. And Conduit argued, many people argued that all of these election integrity bills, mainly sponsored by Senator Hammer, you know, one on its own, such as a photo ID, harmless, fine. But when you collectively put all of these bills together, it makes it nearly impossible for a constituent-led initiative to get something on the ballot. But those who were also in support of it said, well, we can't let conservatives who should know better. Well, we can't let, abortion or marijuana get on the ballot.
Right.
And some people looked at that. It's like, well, okay, you are taking away freedoms, to meet, your end result. How did you view that? Did you have a problem with any of those bills that the legislature passed? What did you think?
I support restrictions on the government, not on the people. And so if it makes it harder for the citizenry to effect real change, then I oppose it. There's no question about that. And so I think that all of these things that you need to follow the money, all of these things that we're trying to go through the legislature, you need to follow the money and see who is pushing for these things and who is against it. Because again, a lot of what comes out of the state capitol nowadays, I'd say 80%, is not for people like me and you. It's for the top elite, maybe even out of state interests that are trying to control what we do in the state.
Yeah. We just briefly pulled up some of the campaign funding, the finance reports for you and your opponent. You have an opponent, Jeremy Riddle. They're also in that district. And Scout, there's a very stark difference between your campaign finance report and the donations that we're seeing for your opponent. And I just thought this was interesting, and you can give me your thoughts. For your opponent, for the Republican primary, you have there's 3 current legislators. You have Base Point PAC, that is Senator Ben Gilmore, Acre Management, Representative Brandon Acre, Representative Matt Brown, and then you have all of these other PACs, such as Bankers Association, Healthcare Political Action Committee, Arkansas Concrete, and then the heavy hitters of the lobbying firms, Impact Management, Capital Advisors, Arkansas Trucking Association, Capital Consulting, Bipartisan Strategies. All of these PACs are giving to your opponent. And then I look at yours, and it's very small. You have gun owners. They've endorsed you. Arkansas Prosperity PAC, that is Representative Matt Duffield, and a few others, along with Senator Terry Rice. What do you think when people look at this? And I've had legislators say, well, I'll take money from anyone. Like that doesn't affect my vote. But when you see all of the big PACs and the lobbyists lining up for one particular candidate over another, what is your reaction?
I won't talk bad about my opponent, but in general, what I see at the state legislature is that lobbying firms want to get people elected that they can sway their vote. Otherwise, they wouldn't be pushing for them to get elected, because a lobbying firm wants to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, you need to vote yes or no on this particular issue. No questions asked. They will do what the lobbying firm says. I'm not saying that all legislators are like that, because I do know a lot that take and then
Sure.
they just say, hey, forget you. I'm gonna vote for my principles.
Yes.
But I can say for me that I vote for my principles. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I've gone toe to toe with these lobbying firms that make more money in a month than I make in a year.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's
Yeah.
a sad state of affairs when you have to worry about all the lobbyists crawling the halls of the state legislature, and little old you're just sitting there waiting to be called in the committee meeting.
Yeah.
And I remember going up there, like, what the day in the life of me during session, right? I homeschool my kids, so I'm home with them. I'm very grateful that I'm able to do that. I'm able to work from home. But I'll get up in the morning and I'll check the agenda for that day. If a bill is about to be called that directly affects me or a small business in Arkansas that I'm passionate against, then I'll have to drop everything, drive to Little Rock, and sometimes I have to take my kids because, my husband's gone to the gym or my mom's out of town or whatever. So here I am with the 5-month-old baby in the back of the committee room waiting for testify. And then they see my name on the list and they think, well, let's just move this one on to the next meeting, hoping that surely she won't come back again. And I do. And I do every time. And so a lot of the things that I want to change down there have to do with that.
Yeah.
It have to do with our ability as business owners, as just constituents, as just people that feel passionately about whatever bill they're trying to run. We need to have a way to limit the number of bills that go through in the session, and we need to require those bills to be filed before session starts. Because a lot of time what will happen is the bill gets filed the night before, right? So then it can be heard the next morning in committee meeting. Well, what if it's a snow day the next day? Happened to me this past session. It happened. Yeah.
I remember launching.
And then I thought, surely they're not going to go to
They
session.
did meet.
Oh, yeah, they did. Oh, yeah, they did. And so I think that that's intentional.
Yeah.
I think you want to pass a controversial bill that you think a lot of opposition will show up for. File it the night before a snow day, because in Arkansas we don't know what to do on that. Right?
You're right. Yeah, I remember there were some consequential bills that were heard on those days. Some of those election integrity bills were heard in state agencies. I remember watching it.
That's intentional. It's shady. It's not right.
Yeah.
We need to be able to have things be easier for our people to show up and have their voices heard. Because again, that's what I'm hearing from the constituency in my district, is that we can't affect anything. We give up. We can't change anything. They don't listen to us anyway. All they listen to are these big money PACs, these big money lobbyists, and we're nobody. We're not the political elite. Well, I'm tired of that. I'm not the political elite either. I never have been. I'm just a girl from Greenbrier, but I show up. Yeah, I'm persistent.
Well, what's interesting in that we've seen a conduit over the years. These candidates will get in office and they'll have a similar background. They can, just be a farmer or just work for, whatever. And it's over time, which is why, so many have said politicians that should never become a lifelong career. Because you eventually, and I posted a Milton Friedman soundbite about that today.
I saw it.
But
Milton Friedman is like my idol.
Yeah, well, we love him here. But they change over time. And
I know what you're talking about is on Condo's legislative scorecard is that you see a graph. Big government, less government, right? And over time, it goes like this.
It does.
It slowly goes down. And so I agree with you. I think that a lot of the times for some legislators, this becomes a job.
Yeah.
And so you're going to do whatever you can to keep that job. But Jenny, I have a job.
Yeah.
I have 2 little kids at home that I'm happy staying home with and running my business. But when I see a problem that needs to be fixed, I'm the type of person that I'll just fix it myself.
Yeah. And I think also too, like to your point, it becomes a full-time job for them. But then what we're seeing also is this trend of, and it hasn't always been this bad, but appointments later or positions or, appointments for your spouses and yes, all of this. And so it's like they're playing this long game, not all of them, like you mentioned, but they're playing this long game to make a career out of it and then to see how else they can benefit and be another cog in the wheel, to just stay there.
Someone that works in the government, would you think they would want more government or the less government?
Right.
And so we need to be really hard at term limits and stuff like that. Like I know we had them and then it kind of got reversed and we went back to extended term limits.
And Conduit tried to warn people, this is not what this says it is. This will actually give them additional year. Yes. I want you to answer this for me. I want to know, like, what do you see as the role of government? What do you see as this essential, role, the things that we should only offer? I want to know that. But then also just as you mentioned your principles earlier, like what is the most important principle to you? And speaking specifically about conservative principles, and the RPA, our platform and principles, adhering to that, what is so just answer those 2 questions, government's role in your opinion, and then maybe just the most important principle for you.
So the first question is easy. It's in our Constitution.
Yeah.
Our government is only here to protect our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And so that's what I believe. The Bill of Rights, it doesn't grant our rights. It restricts the government from infringing upon those rights. And so the less government you have, the more I think that aligns with what our founding fathers meant. And so I'm a huge proponent for states' rights, less federal government. But of course, being elected to the state legislature, that's not something I can control.
Yeah.
Within the state legislature, there are things that we can do to make things easier for our constituency and our taxpayers to have their voices heard. So what I want
what's that line to you?
Is smaller government. Smaller government. I live by this one principle, and that is I'm from the government and I'm here to help are the scariest words in the English language.
Yeah.
That's what Reagan said.
Yeah.
And so if you insert more government into a problem, it creates more problems. And so if we can get away from that mindset that, hey, there ought to be a law. We need government to intervene and fix this. Anytime the government tries to fix something, it makes it worse. And so we need to get back to our founding fathers.
Yeah, I agree. And 2 things that brought to mind was one, I've had this conversation, and Kondo has had this conversation often over the years. People will say, well, if we can just get really good people in office, then that we'll have good government. Like you will never have good government. Like government is as a whole is not good. The only way that we can make things better is what you say, is to restrain spending, to cut back spending, to make government smaller so they have less impact and have less money. Yeah. So they have less impact over your life. And I think if you seem to get this, like economic freedom, we tout this all of the time. And sometimes we were talking about at a committee meeting last night. We want people to really understand, what does economic freedom mean? What does it mean when we talk about that? Government having more of your money. People will be like, well, this issue is really important, or abortion or whatever. We believe that if the government has all of your money, if you have no economic freedom, you have no other freedoms. And those social issues or anything else there on the, outside of the freight, they won't matter.
Right. Until you are fiscally conservative, you can't really be socially conservative. And I do believe that. Like, that should be our number one goal every session, is reduce spending.
To your point about fewer bills, and like, oh, well, let's just, file a bill about this. Also, what I have seen is legislators at times will pat their back on, their own back for the number of bills filed.
Yes.
Um, and I'm like, that's not a good thing. One of the best things you can ever do is to kill a bad bill rather than, continue to file all these other ones.
There were 1,700 bills filed in a 3-month period during session. Do you think that every legislator had the opportunity to read every single one of those bills? Because I know that they can't. I mean, they physically can't. And so a lot of times what they'll do is they'll rely on the input of lobbyists down the road. Hey, you should vote yes for this reason. Okay. Because then I don't have time to read it and it's a 30-page bill. Yeah. Again, another problem I have with we're writing these bills that are 40 pages long. They really just say one thing.
Yeah.
But in the title, it doesn't say what the bill is. You have to read till page 29 before you see, oh, okay, that's what this bill's about.
You know what? Maybe there could be a new bill. I'm just kidding. For make it 8th grade reading level. Maybe they should put that same restriction on themselves. Okay, if we're talking about limiting government and reducing the spending in government, just off the top of your head, what agencies or departments do you think, man, we could shrink that, we could eliminate that we're overspending in that? What do you think?
So
on the state level,
during session, this past session, Doge was like the huge thing on a federal level. I was watching Fox News every day thinking, what's Elon gonna find next? I was so excited. And so I thought, that was back in January.
Yeah.
I thought, surely someone will file a Doge bill.
Yeah.
No such luck. And so I'd like to see that because I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. There's so little transparency. There's so little accountability in our state legislature right now that we don't know what of those agencies need to be cut. So I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see some kind of an audit process. Because me, as a taxpayer, I can't afford to pay more taxes on top of the inflation that's going on, housing prices going up. We can't afford it.
Yeah.
And so let's help our citizens out. And the best way to do that is reduce their taxes, their personal taxes, and also reduce red tape because that's going to bring the price of everything down.
I want to find this number while I'm thinking about it. So there was an article in I think it was Talk Business a few days ago, and touting tourism numbers and record number of that and that sort of thing. And I'm like, man, the state's, Parks and Rec and tourism, all of their publications look really good. Like everything, they're out there, they're promoting. I'm just curious, like what type of contract we may have with that. And so I looked it up, and there's a ad agency. It's Cranford Johnson, Robinson and Woods. Most people just call it CJRW. And I have friends there, so I'm not knocking it, but I was like, what is our contract with them? And just for Department of Parks and Tourism alone is $78 million in advertising.
That's insane.
Yeah. And so, you know what? I'll put this on.
And so this is government. This is government choosing the contract, right?
Yes.
Now it's and a park. Don't you think we would shop around?
We would.
Right?
Yeah.
Or do you think maybe you're going to go if it's not your money?
Yeah.
If it's taxpayers' money, then
I have
who cares?
That's right.
I'm going to give the contract to my friend.
Well, and I have a friend up here. She's a graphic designer. She's like, I would love to have that contract. But, that is just a drop in the bucket just of how much government spends right now. And I would hope tourism would be up if we're spending $78 million with an ad agency to promote it.
Private business is always going to do a better job at spending less money than the government because, again, it's not their money. So let's just spend some more money on XYZ because there's no accountability there. There's no voice from people like me and you to say, hey, this is my money and I don't like what you're doing with it. You can't really just call them up and say that.
Yeah. We saw a lot of Arkansas or economic development legislation this past session, so much so. And what was interesting is, they would file those bills, but then they'd also file a bill that would weaken the transparency. So it got rid of a lot of the accountability and the transparency regarding spending. And so there's now this massive push for it's going to be on the ballot November 2026 I can't think of what they actually call it, what they're.
Are you talking about the corporate wealth?
I am so glad you said that. Well, I was like, I know
that's what it's
I know what
called.
we call it.
That's what we call it.
We
Okay,
call it.
okay, that's what I
What,
call
okay, what are your thoughts? I have a feeling that you're going to say, let the market play out.
Let the market decide. The
Yeah.
market consumers should get to decide how and where they spend their money, not the government. This is just an opportunity for the government to pick and choose their favorites and help those businesses rather than a business they don't like.
Yeah. It's interesting because we'll have legislators say, well, no, you don't quite understand. Or we have to compete. Yeah.
You
we
don't
have to
understand.
and what a lot of constituents hear is, shh, we know what's best for you.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's really hurt them these last few sessions.
The patronizing tone that, well, we know better than you because we're in the government.
Yeah.
Or, most of those firms in Little Rock will treat you like that. It's like, you obviously don't understand.
Yeah.
You're just a constituent. And it drives me insane.
Yeah, it does. Okay, what would be your top 3 priorities if you were elected? And, I have a feeling you're going to say, oh, I want to, reduce spending and cut weight. That's what
Generic.
Yeah, but what does that actually look like if you?
Specific policy measures that I want to implement are bill limits, which probably won't be very popular, but that's something I want to do. I also want to require bills to be filed before session starts. Those are just 2 of my ideas that I think would make a huge impact.
Yeah.
Because now you really have to, if you're a legislator, you really have to think long and hard about, okay, if I'm limited to X amount of number of bills that I can file, I really need to pick the best ones for my constituency. Instead of just writing bills over the summer with your buddy in corporate America that has talked to you about filing a bill on their behalf to squash their competition, which is a lot of the times what happens up there.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Anyway, bill limits, filing before session. That way we, the people, have the opportunity to review the bill and decide whether we want to go up to the Capitol and testify against it or somehow support it, maybe. Maybe you want to support that bill. Another thing that I would want to do is that if a bill is if a bill is on the agenda and it is not heard, then it gets immediately moved to the deferred list. And what I think that will do, will prevent things like snow days, where, hey, this legislator's intentionally not showing up to push it off to the next meeting. Sometimes not always, but sometimes I think that's intentional because me and my fellow business owners would show up to testify against a bill. And then conveniently, the bill author doesn't show up to let the bill be heard. Right. Yeah. So it gets moved off. And so by the next committee meeting, I've lost half my testimony. I've lost half the people, the small business owners, because, okay, think about it. You own a small business. You work there from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Are you really going to take off next week, 2 hours to drive to Little Rock and sit through this meeting? Yeah. You really going to do that again?
What about, would you be committed to, if you were in office, filing some type of legislation? Of course, this has been attempted before. Brian King attempted it, I believe Senator Brian King did in 2023, I think. And it was to make at least there be 5 recorded votes in committee for every bill that gets through committee.
Getting to my next.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't agree with signing bills out of committee because it makes it less transparent for the voter. A lot of the times when they sign these bills out of committee, that piece of paper with those signatures gets lost. And so we don't know how our legislature voted, whether they voted yes or no on that bill, and we never will know.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question? Or
yes and no. So I think you're talking about maybe pulling a bill out of committee if it doesn't pass. Yes,
a lot of committee.
And it is really difficult to get those names. You have to call and
it used to be a gentleman's place down there.
Right.
You just didn't do things like that.
Yeah.
Unless it was like a dire emergency,
Yes.
To do that. Now it's common practice.
It is. Well, I'm talking about normal committee meeting, Dismang is presenting one of his bills, and right now we only have, unless there's a roll call, we only have audibles. And that's at
requiring a roll call vote.
Yes. And so for every bill that gets out of committee, there are 5 recorded votes.
Right. There's the recorded, yes, in a Senate committee anyway, where there's 8 members.
Yeah, but I'm saying I'm saying there needs to be legislation that it can't get out of committee just on a chairman thinking that he hears enough yeses or no's.
Number 5.
Okay.
You're getting my mind. Require roll call.
That's what, okay.
During every committee, because again, think about Senate committees not so bad because there's only 8 people. So you kind of see who voted.
You can, unless they go like this.
Think about following the House rules where there's like 20 people in there. You don't know who voted yes or no. And a lot of the time there is no roll call vote. It's just voice vote.
Yeah.
It's up to the chairman.
Yeah.
What he thought he heard.
Yeah. And that's a great, just additional layer of transparency and accountability to the constituents.
Who voted yes and who voted no, and whether or not I can vote for them again.
Yeah. It's not going to pass. I would love to see that.
Hang on. And then Josh have all these crazy harebrained ideas. He said, these are great.
Yeah.
But no one's going to help you do that.
Yeah.
So I get it. Like, I know.
But when I'm young,
I've never been a politician, but I know I need to make friends, and I get it.
Yeah.
I need to have some allies down there on the Hill. And I think I do. I think there's a lot of people that are conservative, that are fiscally conservative, that would band together and maybe get some of the rhinos out of the way.
I think you're right. Okay, what else do you want people to know? I'm sure you and I could talk all day, but what sets you apart from Jeremy Riddle in this Republican primary election? You both have an R beside your name. You're both, going to say probably a lot of the same talking points that we hear from all of the Republicans. But, what would you tell your constituents? No, this is what sets me apart and why you should vote for me.
So a lot of like G-rated Republican talking points are small government, lower taxes, less regulation, pro-Second Amendment, anti-abortion, those things. But I will say that I am extremely pro-Second Amendment. My husband's a gunsmith, and so I am very familiar with legislation. That's why I was endorsed by the Gun Owners of Arkansas. I'm very familiar with what they go through every single session and how we aren't friendly to the Second Amendment. Federally, anyway. I think we're pretty good in Arkansas, but that's something that can always change.
Yeah.
But, okay. One thing that I do think sets me apart is that I'm a small business owner and I'm so passionate about it that I've been doing it for free for the past 10 years, that I've been lobbying on behalf of small businesses for the past 10 years for free. I go down there just because I care so much about it. And I have a job. I don't need a job.
Yeah.
But when I see something that's a problem, there's something in me that feels like if no one else is going to do it, I'm going to do it. And so I'm tired of things down at the state capitol being run by the elite. And I'm tired of things being run by the few, the richest corporations in Arkansas and out of Arkansas, trying to control where and when we spend our money. A lot of the money that's coming into the state, it's from huge corporations out of state. They spend money on these lobbyists and they determine a lot of the stuff that comes out of the state legislature. And that's something I want to fight against.
I want to ask you, meant to ask this earlier, the proposed Franklin County prison just dominated the headlines, and it still continues to dominate. It's just like, what next? And, we kind of got a lot of heat for opposing that bill, and it was
soft on crime.
Yes, and I'm like, okay, that is such a manipulative argument, but that's fine. We're used to it. What is your take on that? You have, let's see, you're not too close to Franklin, but what are your thoughts on how it was handled? The spending attached to it, the lack of transparency. I know this is a question that constituents are asking candidates. I see people post on Facebook all the time. They're like, where do you stand on the prison? And then it's crickets.
Yeah, they don't love other. Or the red flag is they private message them.
Oh yeah, yeah. So just let us know where you stand on the Franklin County prison.
When I see any bill going through the floor that has a $750 million price tag, my red flags go up. And so what What bothered me about it was the lack of transparency. You obviously by now know how I feel about the lack of transparency in the government. I'm sure that we do. I'm sure that we do need more places for prisoners to go. I'm sure we do. But why put it in a place where nobody wants it? The infrastructure doesn't exist. And there was no public comment. Now, if there was a public support for this and the people were like, hey, yeah, we would love to have this, like they do in Jefferson County.
Yeah.
Love to have this.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen because nobody knew about it until after it was too late. What I would love to see is more public input and honestly less spending attached to it, because the $750 million, as I understand it, was going to turn into $1.5 billion.
I mean, we don't even know.
We don't know.
We don't know what
That's
it's
my point. It's like, okay, you want to raise taxes for whatever project you want to do? Okay, then I need to see a very detailed blueprint of what exactly my money is being spent on, because it's my money, our money. We deserve to know, especially with that much money going into it.
And show us an offset. Show us where. Okay, so I know that our viewers are going to want to know, well, where does Scout stand on the Franklin County Prison? So, okay, we have a lot of time left from now until election.
I'm getting an early start.
You are. That's great.
Well, I don't have a lot of money, so I have to work really hard, which I'm a stranger to. As you know, I have a farm and I have 2 little kids that I homeschool, so I'm not afraid of hard work.
Yeah.
I actually grew up on a cattle farm, and my parents were too cheap to buy a round baler, so we're out there hauling square bales in weather like this. Wow. So, again, I am not afraid to work, and I'm not afraid to work on behalf of the people, not on behalf of special interest groups.
All right. How can people get in touch with you, follow your campaign, volunteer, give us your contact info and what you would like them to know?
I keep it easy. I bet I'm the only scout that you know. And so it's just my name, scoutstubbs.com or Scout Stubbs for state rep on Facebook. I'm really active on Facebook. I like to post up what I'm doing, where I'm going, so that way people do want to talk to me. They can, because I'm tired of this being like a secret society thing that only the elite get involved and donate and influence their legislators. This is for everybody. I want to have like a parking lot party where anybody can come by and say, hey, what do you think about this issue? They can give me a gotcha anytime. I'd love to talk.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to mention? Okay. All right.
Think of something like.
Well, you're always welcome to come back on here and talk to us, and just really appreciate the fact that you're running, and we look forward to watching your campaign.
Thank you.